Welcome to Community Energy Project's DIY hybrid water heater installation video, also called a heat pump water heater. Community Energy Project is a Portland-based nonprofit focused on safe, healthy, and efficient housing for all. This video is a supplemental resource created in conjunction with a full presentation and supporting materials. To find a recorded version of the presentation and additional resources, please visit communityenergyproject.org. This resource was made possible thanks to funding from Energy Trust of Oregon and in partnership with Great Northwest Installations, an Energy Trust of Oregon trade ally who allowed us to record their installation process. Please keep in mind that every installation will be unique and come with its own set of challenges and safety considerations. Hybrid water heater installation involves both electrical and plumbing work. For a first-time installer with a basic understanding of the process, we suggest setting aside a full day to complete this project. Please work safe and, when in doubt, reach out to a professional. This video will cover installation steps to get your heat pump water heater set up. To kick things off, let's hear from Steve at Great Northwest Installations.
So hello, my name's Stephen Broughton from Great Northwest Installations, and pretty much what we did today here is install a heat pump water heater. This is pretty much our forte. We are a water heater installation company, but we specialize in heat pump water heaters. There's a lot of reasons why we do this, for the earth, for the people, for the houses. We believe heat pump water heaters, as far as water heating, is a tremendous need for most homes for efficiency and, again, just environmentally conscious. So a couple things to consider when you're going to install your heat pump water heater is definitely some tools you're going to need. Crescent wrench. We like to use crescent wrench so it doesn't scar the nuts on the supply lines. Screwdriver, Phillips and regular. For the most part, installing this water heater is mostly all Phillips. A drill is preferable if you have to put earthquake straps on. Again, we use an anchor bolt to put the straps on here through the studs. A stud finder would be great, or a probe bit small screwdriver. You want to make sure anytime you're putting any nuts or bolts, screws or whatnot into the walls, you want to make sure that we're not going to hit any plumbing lines, electrical lines, drain lines. Material wise, we did the PEX plumbing and then of course the installation. Typically on an install like this, if the plumbing's coming out of the wall for this water heater, you're really only going to need about 10 feet of PEX, just 3/4 inch PEX pipe. The fittings for this, we use either FIP or MIP adapters. That would be 2 of those up top, 2 MIP adapters to connect the water flexes. You're going to need crimp rings for that, and of course a pinch tool. So depending on the plumbing you plan on using, you want to make sure you have the right tool for it. If you're good at sweating copper, you could do copper. Galvanized, not really something you want to go out and get all that, just run it in PEX. It's so much easier, and it's actually much cheaper. And it's what they're plumbing all new homes with, so it's no problem there. You'll need 2 flex supplies, so that's the connections from the plumbing to the water heater. Again, your earthquake kit, it's going to come with 1 for the bottom, 1 for the top. CPVC, probably about 10 feet of CPVC pipe. We use that for the drain. So again, CPVC for the condensate, and it's hard to see back here, but CPVC for the temperature and pressure relief line off the water heater. A couple of zip ties so you can prevent yourself from having to put any screws into the water heater. And again, it's just to secure that plumbing so it's not shaking. Electrical, there's some more parts there you might need. We put this elbow on here when it was straight before. Just an elbow to the connector, it gives you more room. Plus we want to leave space so it goes around so we can open and get that vent out of there, or the filter, to clean out the filter for the water heater. Other than that, there definitely could be a bunch more parts, tools that you need. We carry a lot of stuff in our truck, but if you're going to do it at home, that should be about all you need. And again, always read the manual before you start. YouTube is wonderful if you have a computer, smartphone, something you can just kind of look it up and see it. Videos are great. You're messing with electricity, you're messing with water, so we want to make sure that you're safe, your home is safe, and just really make sure you read and understand what you're doing before you start. But it is something you can do on your own. It kind of makes you feel good when you're done to say, hey, I did this. And you can do it, install it right, install it to code and the manufacturer instructions. It's a great feeling, and you'll feel good when you're done.
As Steve mentioned, there's a variety of tools and supplies needed to install a hybrid water heater. Before you get started on your installation, here are the tools we suggest having on hand. A measuring tape to ensure adequate size and spacing, Teflon tape to seal your new plumbing connections, a screwdriver and wrench set, a drill, a level, step ladder, a voltage meter or electrical current tester, which will allow you to ensure all power has stopped flowing to the wiring for your water heater, a garden hose or bucket, depending on how you will drain your current water heater unit. If you're working in a basement, you might consider using a pump for efficiency. And last, a pipe cutter or hacksaw if you anticipate large plumbing alterations will need to be made. Additionally, you'll want to visit your local hardware store and ensure you have all the necessary supplies for a successful installation. First off, you'll definitely need your new hybrid water heater unit. For tips on selecting a new hybrid water heater, please check out our live presentation recording and related resources. You'll want to become familiar with the owner's manual that comes with your new unit to ensure any additional supplies you purchased for the installation are compatible. You'll need new water supply pipes, depending on the difference between how your old unit and new unit connect to the plumbing. You'll likely need a mix of rigid PEX tubing and flexible supply tubing, plus the corresponding adapters and crimp rings. You'll need electrical tape and caps to secure the power supply correctly, a section of pipe insulation to fit over the warm water supply pipe, earthquake straps that are compatible with your new unit and placement, and a bottom board, which is a piece of rigid foam insulation that your new unit will sit on. With your tools and supplies ready to go, you can now prepare to decommission and remove your old water heating unit. You'll start by cutting off the power supply to the water heater.
So before we start our installation, we want to go to the electrical panel and confirm we found the water heater breaker. Also, before you actually purchase your water heater, you want to look and see. So on the end of your switches for the water heater, it says 30 amp breaker. If this is a 20 or a 25 amp breaker, then you really want to be concerned with a few things. So any water heater, electric water heater, is going to come with typically a range of anywhere from a 3600 watt element up to the max of about a 5500 watt element. So the important piece of this is to make sure that the breaker panel, the switch for your water heater, is compatible with the electric water heater. The one we're putting in today requires a 30 amp breaker. Say if your breaker is a 25 amps, you go in your panel and see 25 or a 20 amp breaker even, then you would want to make sure that you can get a water heater that actually can take that 20 amp breaker. It actually has the element of the wattage of the elements inside that water heater are rated for a 20 amp breaker. So we call it a 15 amp water heater if you were to, again, order the ring. That's just a quick, easy thing to remember. So always make sure that the voltage tester works. So obviously it's turned it on, it has a light, you want something that shows that it's on. So I'll just find power somewhere, turns red, I know we got power. So this one here, I got a little access. If I didn't have access, when I go to pull the power off, I'll test it here. But I can touch the wire and it's not turning on. We've already turned it off in the electrical panel. And again, safety first, when I disconnect and have actual wires out, we'll be testing again.
Next, you'll need to drain all the water out of the unit. Depending on where your water heater is located in your home, you may need a hose, bucket, pump, or combination of the three.
So once the water's off, either at the meter or you shut your valve off to the home, you can open a faucet inside the house to relieve some air. What we did here is just slowly turn the nut to remove the flex with the crescent wrench, and you can start to hear air seeping, which means it's pulling. Again, our drain valve is open for it to drain out of the house. So once that's happening, we're pretty good to remove the supply line, and now water's just flowing out of the tank. When you're taking your water heater out, remember your house is going to be plumbed most likely with about 3 different types of material. This home has copper, so we're pretty solid. It's copper plumbing, so we're pretty good to go. We'll be able to make our connections up here, no problem. Some homes will have galvanized plumbing. So galvanized plumbing is very much like the end of this. They've taken a galvanized piece of pipe and put in here, and I don't know if you want to take a look around, you can come around and see the buildup that's in that. The reason why this is happening is galvanized plumbing, so after time it starts to rust. Homes that have straight galvanized plumbing are going to have some rust, could have some buildup. The end of the pipe here might not be flush, so that's a possibility. You might have a leak there. So you just have to be careful. If if we can, maybe change it out. If it's not, if it doesn't have a good seal on it. So the inside of the flexes, and of course we're going to put new ones on, but they have rubber washers in here, so they are a little forgiving whenever you reconnect. So it's just a matter of how how you feel, skill level, knowledge of materials, how far you want to go into the plumbing of the home. But as of right now, someone could still disconnect and reconnect to both of these and be fine. So other than galvanized, the other one that I'm really conscious about is this. So this was used for the drain, and we do use this for drain pipe. This was on this one. Flow guard. Typically it's about the only one you're going to see, but basically this material we call CPVC. It's yellow plastic pipe. If you have yellow plastic pipe coming out of your walls up top, you really want to be careful and hold tight, back it up when you're disconnecting and reconnecting your plumbing. With age, it'll just snap, it just breaks off. So again, caution anytime you have CPVC, just be very careful. It can be repaired if you break it, but you need a clean joint. You're going to have to glue it back together, and typically you want to wait a day for your plumbing to dry.
Once you've drained the water and detached the plumbing, you're ready to remove the unit.
We do. Taking the water heater out of your house, especially if you have a basement, it's going to be very difficult without a hand truck. So we've got a hand truck that we use all the time. Have a friend help. I mean, you can carry them out if you're able to drain the water out of them. One nice little trick is also, I didn't do it here, but it'll make sense. Take one of the water flexes off completely, leave the other one on, and reconnect it to the other side, and that'll give you a handle. This is round, it's heavy, it's awkward. Again, 2 people if you don't have a hand truck. Always have somebody there for safety. But if you can tie the other side back on, it gives you a handle to hold on to and to pull it out of whatever space you have it in.
Make sure you have a way to dispose of your old unit. Hire a recycling or junk removal service. Check if your local waste or recycling centers will accept it, or contact your local Habitat for Humanity or similar reuse store. Once the old unit has been removed, you'll want to prepare the space and plumbing for the new unit, as well as familiarize yourself with the new unit so it will function properly once installed.
We're going to take this out because it's very rusty and I'm probably going to have a bad connection. So we call backing up. If I'm going to take this out, so I'm going to want to turn this thing to get it out. I'm going to want to back up the other end of the pipe, the valve, whatever you're holding on to. Anytime you're doing this, you're keeping the other end from moving, basically, because we don't want to snap the valve off or break the pipe on the other end. A lot of bad things can come from it if you don't back it up.
When your space is prepared for the new unit, you'll place your unit on the bottom board. At this point, it's important to ensure you can access the display panel and filter, as well as find a clear path for the plumbing connections to follow. Before attaching the electrical and plumbing, we will install the earthquake straps.
So this is our heat pump water heater. So start from the bottom here. Always check the drain valve, just make sure it's tight. That way it's not draining out on you when you put it in. Unlike your conventional water heater where the water, feeds from the top for the cold and the hot, this one down here, this is the cold feed at the bottom. So we're going to have to plumb the cold water line that comes out of the wall above the water heater you have existing down so that we can get into the cold. So it still has element covers for the bottom and the top. Even though it's a heat pump water heater, it can still use electricity and can still use elements to heat this tank when it needs to. This is the hot. So that's where you're going to tie your hot line into. Same thing, we're going to have to get the hot coming out of the wall down to affix to the hot outgoing side of the water heater. And next to it's your temperature and pressure release valve. This can go to the floor in the garage application, could go to the floor in a basement application. Basically, you want to look at your local codes, manufacturer instructions. It has to go to an approved location. So we have the heat pump, sits right on top of the water heater. This is the port for the condensate, very important. This machine does condensate, so you're going to want to connect to this. And hand tighten only, very important. We don't want to crack the housing or it kills the water heater. Control panel, we'll go over this once we've got it fired up. But that's how you turn the machine on and off and choose your settings. Up top, this is the filter for a heat pump water heater. It does have a filter that needs to be cleaned. But right on top, this is where the air is pulled into the heat pump water heater. So this is where the magic happens. It's going to take the air out of the room that it's in, goes into the machine. There's a fan inside that's pulling the air in, passes through your filter, goes into the compressor. It works very much like a refrigerator. So what it's doing is this one in reverse of a refrigerator is pulling the ambient heat out, using the heat to go through a pipe and tubing system that wraps around the water heater, using the warm air through the compressor to heat the water. After it basically pulls all the ambient heat out of the air, now it needs to exhaust the cold, and that's why this particular model heat pump water heaters have a fan on them. So you're going to have air that's going to blow out of this. It's the same air we breathe in here. It's not exhaust, but we always call it, we refer to it as an exhaust fan. But it's blowing the air out. That air is going to be chilled because, again, it's pulled all the ambient heat out. So wherever we direct this, you just have to keep in mind that it's going to be blowing cold air. If it was next to a washing machine, you know, it could be blowing in your face. So those are little things we watch out for. In the garage application, it's going to be facing pretty much right here. So it's going to be blowing out. So again, it's only air. You walk out, if the machine's running, you're going to feel that little blast of cold air. These machines can be ducted. So if the cold air is something that bothers you, you can duct them to other locations. For this application, we're on concrete. Also, we would consider a garage an unconditioned space. So we're going to put a bottom board underneath. It protects the water heater as well as it helps insulate the bottom of the water heater. You can pick these foam pads up in the hardware store. There's different types you can use, but for us, you know, we're installing it for consumers, so we're going to use actual R10 rated. It's on there. But definitely you want to put it down if you're on concrete or an unconditioned space. It's going to even improve the efficiency of the water heater as well. Two joints together. We want to make sure Teflon tape and pipe dope to make sure that we are resealing to help for no leaks. About 3 or 4 times, you're good. Some people use just Teflon tape, some people use just pipe dope. I'm one of those, I do both. Make sure you don't cross thread it. It should be able to go in hand tight for a little ways. Alright, so in our area it is code to put earthquake straps on, so especially basements, garages such as this, crawl space attics. Hopefully you're up against the wall. If you're not, you could have a stud. Sometimes we have to actually make walls. Again, if you're doing it yourself, you still got to put the earthquake straps on, or it could come back to bite you later on. These ones here, we're going right into the studs with the earthquake straps, and they're supposed to be installed top third, bottom third of the water heater. So for me, I usually put them right here below the electrical panel, in between there and the drain, and the top ones that just come right across here. Don't put your earthquake straps on the heat pump water heater anywhere up in this area. Everything needs to be accessible, and this is a maintenance item on top, so we want to be able to get this shell off from these screws, so we don't want to lock this in. So just right here on the top.
At this point, it's time to attach your plumbing for both the cold water inlet and the hot water outlet. Once secured, you can begin to fill up your unit. The last step in finishing up with the plumbing is to install the condensate drain. Please note that you might need a condensate pump for your unit. We'll discuss the use of condensate pumps in more depth in the live presentation recording.
Alrighty, so far we've got the plumbing ran now off the existing plumbing. Again, just doing some adapters right off that copper, converting to PEX. Comes down. Hot side here is now connected with the flex supply. Cold side's coming down. We'll go ahead and throw some insulation on these pipes before we finish up, but it goes down, ties into the cold. So we're pretty much ready to get some water flowing here and get this tank filled up. Okay, so we've turned the water onto the water heater. It's really important. Turn the water on slow to begin with. Let the house lines, your plumbing lines, start to fill with water. This valve is open, so our incoming valve is open. Allows for the tank to come in. Over here on the side we have the temperature and pressure release valve. We can open that. It's going to blow a little bit of air out. As the water's filling the tank, the tank is full of air. So what we want to try to do is prevent clogging of the water lines inside the home. Older pipes such as galvanized plumbing, there will be some rust and debris that might go through. So we want to purge the air out of the tank as best we can, so it's not acting as an air compressor, pushing and breaking the rust debris, any kind of stuff that's going to be inside those galvanized lines. Again, these are copper, so we're going to be pretty good, but galvanized is super important. You might want to learn how to clean your aerators. Alright, so now we're going to apply the condensate drain. I'm going to start it with a T. Has a male adapter on it right here. So again, we want to remember when you put the condensate drain on, it's hand tighten only. So we'll take a peek over here. There's the 3/4 inch port right there. And this guy's just going to go right in there. Make sure you don't cross thread it and just tie it on. You can build this tee to any size or dimensions you want. I've already kind of put it together a little bit. But all we're going to do is just hand tighten it. No more than hand tighten. If you do break anything on this tank, that tray, then we're pretty much done. So we got to make sure we don't over tighten it.
Once you've finished up with the plumbing components of your hybrid water heater, it's time to connect the electrical wires and bring power to your new unit. If this is your first time handling electrical wires, we suggest watching step-by-step instruction videos. We've highlighted resources for this step at our website where you can find all of our additional resources.
Alrighty, so we'll connect the wiring. Last one. Make sure they're snug. And twist it on there quite a bit till the wires start to twist, so you know you're tight, and then you just want to pull on each one of them. And I did the same with the black one down there. I got the red or white one up here, and just snug them into your little junction box on top of the water heater. Get everything fastened in there. Okay, so we have finished the installation of this water heater. Last step I do is just make sure you get some insulation on here. We have turned the water on, the tank is full. It's very important to go through the house, make sure that you purge all of the water out through your fixtures, faucets, showers, tubs, just to make sure everything's flowing normally, and that you also know that you don't have any issues with maybe some clogging if you had galvanized plumbing. So we've insulated the pipes and earthquake straps are on. We made sure there's no leaks down below. Of course, I made sure there's no leaks at the fittings before we put the insulation on. All the connections. Condensate is ran. The condensate drain, again, goes to the pump here. Other homes could be the condensate can run out through a wall. If this was an outside wall, you could drill a hole and run it here. You could run it to your laundry. There's a few different places that are approved locations for condensate. You just kind of have to, again, read the instructions and see what's available in your home. And you can run it to a sink. Floor drains, if they're not sticking out in the middle of the floor, again, if it's a basement application. But this condensate does have to be ran somewhere to an approved location. So that's the big thing. That's probably the one thing that you're going to run across that's totally different than any other water heater, is that this water heater does have a drain line for the condensate that has to be ran off. Other than that, we are going to turn on the power. So everything's wired up here. We're ready to turn the machine on. We've turned the power on in the breaker. The machine's going to be making some noises, so you want to make sure before you actually turn it on to let it go through its process. It's going to make some noises, the compressor, everything is kind of acknowledging that it's been turned on. Again, it does have a small computer built into it. It's got some stuff in there that is going to make sure it's protecting your water heater and, you know, has vital information and whatnot. Nonetheless, once the noise stops, you're pretty good to turn it on. So what we're going to do is hit the on-off button. So it goes from disabled to 120. You have one more step we're going to do, and that's to hit the mode button. Automatically goes to energy saver mode. Again, set at 120 degrees. You know it's fired up. You're going to hear the noise and feel cold air coming out of the side of it. And that cold air means it's doing its job. Again, it's pulling the heat, or it's pulling the air from the room. Comes into the water heater, separates the heat, pulls the heat out for it to operate as it moves through the filter. Again, the filter's up top here, easy clean. Air passes through, goes to the compressor, just like a refrigerator in reverse. Instead of making the refrigerator cold, in this application we're making the water heater hot. And again, it's going to blow out that cold air. And again, it's just air in the room, it's not exhaust, not dangerous or anything, but you will feel a chill. That's pretty much it. There's some extra features on here. The mode button can go through other operations of the water heater. You'd want to refer to your manual for that. Our climate, we're not really too worried about it getting very cold, but you can switch it to element mode. I do like the element mode because if you can change it to element mode, if this heat pump ever fails, you have an issue with it, you need to call for service, you can still create hot water.
Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can find all of our programs and services by visiting communityenergyproject.org, emailing us at hello@communityenergyproject.org, or calling 503-284-6837.